So there's this documentary coming to Netflix in like 2 weeks called Trust Me, The False Prophet. And it's about this couple, right? A cult expert and her filmmaker husband who moved to this tiny town in Utah, Short Creek, because they want to help people who were messed up by Warren Jeffs and the FLDS. And they get there and they're like, okay, cool, we're here to do good work, support a broken community. But then they realize there's a new guy, a new prophet. This dude Samuel Bateman who just stepped right into the vacuum Jeff's left behind. And he's claiming divine authority. He's got followers, he's got wives, and this couple goes undercover, like actually infiltrates his inner circle. And what they find is, it's bad. Okay, but here's the thing that's been messing with me ever since I heard about this. It's not just the obvious horror of it, right? Like, yes, cults are terrifying, we all know that. But what got me was how normal the setup looked from the outside. Like, you strip away the prairie dresses and the religious language, and it's just a charismatic guy with a vision, building a following, demanding loyalty. And I'm sitting there thinking, where have I seen that before? Because, dude, and I know this sounds crazy, but the more I read about cult leaders, like actually read the research, the more I keep seeing CEOs. I keep seeing startup founders. I keep seeing, like, corporate leadership culture. And it's freaking me out, like, genuinely. Because you think of a cult leader and you picture some bearded weirdo in a robe somewhere in the desert, right? But that's not what these people look like. They look polished. They look confident. They look like the kind of person you'd want to follow. And that's kind of the whole problem.
No. It's not crazy at all. And I think that's actually where this gets really uncomfortable. Because there's this body of research, the Dark Triad. You ever heard of this?
I mean, I've heard the name thrown around, but...
Yeah, so it's 3 personality traits that keep showing up together. Narcissism, like grandiose, I'm special, I deserve more than everyone else. Machiavellianism, which is basically the willingness to manipulate and scheme without guilt. And psychopathy, not like movie psychopathy, but low empathy, shallow emotions, high risk tolerance. And here's where it gets weird. Researchers have been looking at these 3 traits for years, and they keep finding the same thing. They're overrepresented in 2 populations, cult leaders and Fortune 500 CEOs. Like the Venn diagram is way too close to a circle, man.
Wait. You're telling me there's actual data on this? Like peer-reviewed stuff?
Oh, absolutely. Borden Fritzen did a study comparing business executives to criminal psychiatric patients on personality profiles, and the overlap was, it was significant. And then you've got work from people like Robert Hare, the guy who literally invented the psychopathy checklist, saying, yeah, if you want to find psychopaths, look at prisons and look at boardrooms.
That's terrifying. Because, like, take NXIVM, right? Keith Raniere. This guy called himself Vanguard. Very normal, very humble. And he was running what looked like a personal development company, seminars costing $6,000 to $10,000, 18,000 members at its peak. He recruited actresses, politicians, successful professionals. Like, we're talking about people with law degrees and MBAs lining up to pay this guy. And from the outside, it looked like a high-end self-improvement brand. Like a really expensive Tony Robbins situation. They had executive coaching, leadership workshops. They had a color-coded sash system for ranking, like karate belts, but for your personal growth journey. And it was a cult. The whole thing. He's doing 120 years right now. And what's wild is, some of those members, they didn't leave when the allegations started. They didn't leave when the branding started. They stayed because they believed in the mission. That's the part that keeps me up.
And that's the thing. That's exactly the thing. Because the tactics Raniere used, the escalating financial commitment, the hierarchical ranking system, the pressure to recruit your peers, if you describe those mechanics to somebody without context, they'd think you were describing a corporate training program, or an MLM, or frankly, a lot of Silicon Valley companies I could name but won't.
So, okay, let's go even darker for a second. Because NXIVM is one end of this spectrum. The polished, corporate-looking end. But then there's Paul Mackenzie, this pastor in Kenya. Good News International Church. That was the name. Good news. And just last month, February 2026, he got charged with 52 more deaths on top of what they'd already found. They've pulled over 400 bodies out of Shakahola Forest. 400. And the autopsies showed most of them starved to death, willingly, because he told them to. He told them fasting to death was how they'd get to heaven before the world ended. And it wasn't just adults, children. They found children who had been strangled, suffocated, some beaten. And the parents? The parents let it happen. Some of the parents did it themselves, because he told them it was God's plan.
400 people in a forest, and nobody stopped it for years.
Years. The investigation started in 2023, and they were still finding bodies in 2025. And your brain goes, how? How does someone convince 400 people to starve themselves and their children to death? And that's where... Okay, so there's this psychiatrist, Robert Lifton. He studied thought reform, brainwashing, mind control, whatever you want to call it. And he came up with 8 criteria. 8 specific conditions that have to be present for thought reform to work. And when you lay them out, it's like reading a manual. What are they?
So I'll hit the ones that matter most here. First, milieu control. That's controlling the environment, the information, the communication. You decide what people see, hear, read. Mackenzie did this literally. He moved people to a remote forest. But think about it in a corporate context. NDAs, proprietary information, internal communication platforms only. Don't talk to the press. That's milieu control in a blazer. Then there's what Lifton calls sacred science. The ideology becomes absolute truth that cannot be questioned. In a cult, it's the prophet's word. In a company, it's the founder's vision. You don't question the vision. You don't push back on the roadmap. The vision is sacred. And then, demand for purity. There's always a standard you can never fully reach. In Mackenzie's cult, you had to purify yourself through starvation. In hustle culture, you're never working hard enough. You're never committed enough. If you have boundaries, you're not a team player.
Dude, you're literally describing 3 different companies I've worked at right now, and I'm not even joking. Like the NDA thing, I had a job where we couldn't even tell people what floor our office was on. And I remember thinking that was normal. Like, I just accepted it. And the we're a family thing, oh my God, every toxic workplace I've ever been in called itself a family. You know what real families don't do? Real families don't fire you for taking a sick day. But when you're inside it, when you're drinking the Kool-Aid, and I hate that expression, but it's literally what we're talking about, you don't see it. You think this is just how work is. You think loyalty means silence. And that's Lifton's whole point, right? Like, these criteria aren't just cult stuff. They're a spectrum. And most of us are somewhere on it.
And that's the third piece. That's the piece that makes all of this actually scary, not just interesting. There's a psychologist named Leon Festinger back in the 1950s, and he actually infiltrated a doomsday cult, like went undercover with his research team to study what happens when a prophecy fails. The cult believed the world was going to end on a specific date, and when it didn't end, you'd think everyone would just go home, right? Nope, they doubled down. They decided the prophecy didn't fail. They decided their faith had saved the world. And Festinger built a whole theory out of this called cognitive dissonance, and honestly, it's the most important thing I think anyone should understand about human psychology. The basic idea is, when you hold a belief and reality contradicts that belief, your brain doesn't just go, "Oh, I was wrong." Your brain panics. And more often than not, instead of changing the belief, you change your interpretation of reality to protect the belief. You double down, you rationalize, you find ways to make it make sense, because admitting you were wrong means admitting you wasted your time, your money, your loyalty, your identity, and the deeper you're in, the more you've sacrificed, the harder it becomes to walk away.
The sunk cost of belief.
Exactly. That's the perfect way to say it. And Festinger proved this over and over. The more you invest, emotionally, financially, socially, the harder your brain will work to justify that investment. It's not a weakness, it's not stupidity. It's your brain trying to protect you from the pain of admitting you got played. And the really insidious thing is, the best cult leaders know this. They design their systems around escalating commitment. Each step you take makes the next step feel inevitable. Each sacrifice you make becomes the reason you can't leave. And this is how you get NXIVM. Members who stayed, even after they were literally being branded, physically branded with Raniere's initials, using a cauterizing pen, no anesthesia. And they rationalized it as a commitment ceremony, a symbol of trust. They filmed each other doing it and called it empowering. And from the outside, you're screaming at your screen like, how do you not see what this is? But that's the whole point of Dissonance. They couldn't see it. Because seeing it would mean everything they'd believed, every dollar they'd spent, every relationship they'd sacrificed, every friend they'd recruited, all of it would collapse. And that collapse is more terrifying than the brand.
That's dark.
And this is how you get employees who stay at companies that are grinding them into dust. Because leaving means admitting that the last 5 years were a mistake, that the promotions you chased meant nothing, that the weekends you missed with your kids were for a company that would replace you in 2 weeks. It means the sacrifice meant nothing, and people would rather suffer in a story that makes sense than be free in one that doesn't. And you know what really messed me up about the Trust Me documentary? The couple who went undercover, the ones who knew exactly what they were looking at, who understood the psychology, who had literally studied coercive control for years, who went in with their eyes wide open. Even they said there were moments where they almost got pulled in. Moments where the singing felt real, where the community felt genuine, where someone looked them in the eye and said, "You belong here." And some part of their brain went, yeah, I do. Because that's the thing about cult leaders and about really good CEOs. They're not offering you lies. They're offering you meaning, purpose, identity, the feeling that you are part of something bigger than yourself. And meaning is the most addictive thing on earth. More addictive than money, more addictive than power, because meaning is the thing that makes all the suffering feel worth it. And the moment someone can manufacture that feeling at will, that's when it gets dangerous.
So where does that leave us? Like, genuinely, what do we do with this information?
I don't think there's a clean answer, and I think anyone who gives you a clean answer is probably selling you something, which is kind of the whole point. The instinct to follow isn't a flaw. It's human. We're wired for it. Thousands of years of evolution wired us to find the person with the plan and stick close to them. We want to believe someone has the map. We want to feel like we're part of something that matters. We want belonging so badly that we'll trade almost anything for it. And there are people out there, some in compounds in Utah, some in forests in Kenya, some in corner offices in Manhattan, who understand that instinct better than you understand it in yourself. And they know exactly how to use it.
And they're not all crazy.
No. That's the scariest part. Most of them are brilliant. Most of them are articulate and warm, and they make you feel seen. They make you feel like you matter. And you do matter to them. Right up until you don't. They're just using it differently. So the next time someone tells you they've got the vision, maybe just ask yourself which side of the line they're on. Because the line is thinner than you think.